Today we're joined by two British UFC fighters, Michael Bisping and Dan Hardy. They're both in action on the 14th of November at UFC 105, being held at the Manchester Evening News Arena. If you could give a description of yourself, please.
Yeah, hi, my name is Michael Bisping, known as The Count. I fight at the Wolfslayer MMA Academy in Liverpool, and I'm a middleweight fighter, and I wear size 10 shoes.
My name's Dan the Outlaw Hardy. I fight out of Nottingham. My team's called Rough House. And my fighting style is Muay Thai.
Incidentally, size 8.
Size 11s, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, and I'm a welterweight.
So your fight's at UFC 105. Mike, you're fighting Dennis Kang.
Yep.
What do you think about him?
He's a very good fighter. He's very experienced. He's a veteran of the sport. He's fought some of the best fighters in the world. So it's going to be good. It should be a tough test. I think I've got the skills to beat him, obviously. If I didn't, I'd be in the wrong business. But I think he's going to come out, and hopefully we're going to put an exciting fight on for the fans. He's got a pretty exciting style. He's a good all-rounder. So, hopefully it's going to be fun and everyone's going to enjoy the fight.
Dan, you're fighting King Dong-Hyun. What do you think about him?
He's a tough guy. He's unbeaten in 12 fights. A little taller than me, southpaw, and he's got a degree in judo, believe it or not. So, I didn't realise that was a real subject, but whatever.
I have a degree in Cluedo.
So I think it'd be a good fight. He always comes prepared, and he always tries to finish the fight. And I also think he's going to get knocked out.
How's your training going for the fights so far?
Well, it's still early days. We're 9 weeks out from the fight now, so the camp's just really starting about now, to be honest. It hasn't really started, to answer your question, but it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm flying in a few guys from around the world. Got a couple of Brazilians coming in, a couple of Americans. At the Wolfslayer in Liverpool, where I train, we have a very strong team anyway. So no doubt it's going to be another fantastic camp, and I'll be ready.
I've just got back from Los Angeles. I've just done 6 weeks out there, just kind of pre-camp. Working on my judo, my jiu-jitsu and my wrestling. I'm going to start training camp probably on Monday. And I've got all my regular team around me, so it'll just be a straightforward camp, 8 weeks of pain and misery and dieting.
Now, to talk about your last fights, Dan, you fought Marcus Davies. There was quite a lot of controversy surrounding that fight. Would you want to fight him again? He wanted a rematch, possibly in Boston or in Dublin. Would you ever be up for that?
It depends. To be honest, there's no real value in me fighting him at the moment. I'm concentrating on moving upwards and fighting guys who are top 10. And Marcus Davies is he's outside the top 10 now, and I feel like I've passed him. So unless he kind of turns his career around and gets back on a winning streak, then no.
Your loss against Dan Henderson.
Yep.
It was quite a resounding defeat, unfortunately.
It was, yeah.
Would you want to fight Henderson again?
Yeah, definitely. The first round, he won the first round, but it was pretty close. The second round, I was winning the second round. I was definitely starting to pick him off and catching my shots and things, and he was starting to tire. But that's all pointless, really. When you think about it, because he ended up knocking me out. But up until that point, I was doing well. I made a couple of stupid mistakes, but it sounds silly, but I know I can beat Dan Henderson. I know I can beat him. I didn't beat him on the night. He's, I'm not taking anything away from the guy. But if we were to fight again, I think the outcome would be different.
If you were to fight Dan again, what would you work on for better? Would it be your hands, your stand-up, or would you?
No, to be honest, I had a good game plan going in there. It came out pretty aggressive, and like I say, caught me with a few shots in the first round. I was kind of dazed a little bit. The second round, I was starting to settle into my groove, but he caught me with a good shot. That's MMA, you only wear small 4-ounce gloves. You see it all the time. You get caught with a good one on the chin. If it's a good solid punch, which it was, he knocked me out. It's not that I haven't got a good chin. I've fought many kickboxing fights and many MMA fights, and I've never been knocked out or stopped. Which
might deter a lot of people from watching it. From UFC 1, the sport has become a lot more better with padded gloves having more power to stop the fight. Do you think the sport's at a stage where it doesn't need to be changed anymore to be made safer, or do you think there are things?
I personally think the sport's fine the way it is. There's many regulations, different weight classes. As you said, it's come a long way since its early days, when really then it was just a spectacle. Now it is, a highly regulated sport, you know, sanctioned by athletic commissions around the world. I don't think there's anything that needs changing. I think they've made the necessary changes, and right now it is a good sport. There's nothing else. I would say if you brought in too many more rules, it'd stop it being mixed martial arts. You know,
judging criteria.
Yeah.
I think the sport is solid as it is. I think the rules are perfect, and you know, I think everyone's got a little more agreed with.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because it's kind of judged on a boxing model, a 10-point must system, but you know. And a lot of the judges come from a boxing background, or they might come from a wrestling background, you know. So it kind of depends on what background a certain judge has, and that sways what he scores more. You know, like if he's from a wrestling background, he'll score a takedown more. If he's from a boxing background, he might score a stand-up more. So you don't really know what the judges are looking for, you know. So sometimes you see some crazy decisions, you know. So yeah, I think Dan makes a good point. Yeah. Apart from that, though, I think. It's pretty much on the money.
Yeah, I think as the sport gets older and you know more experienced fighters, you know, that are fighting now start to retire, you know, and they'll be able to move into judging. I think that'll help as well, because the judges at the moment have never really competed in MMA, so I don't really think they understand the sport as well as they should.
Mike, you became infamous with the UFC from winning the Ultimate Fighter Season 3, which got you a 6-figure contract with them. 6 seasons on, and we're about to start the Ultimate Fighter Season 10.
Yep.
With the heavyweights. Most notable.
Yeah.
What are your opinions on Kimbo Slice?
Well, I've never met the guy, so you know I don't have any personal opinions on him. But for me, as a fighter, I respect anyone who has the balls to step up there and get in there and put it all on the line in front of millions of people on TV or whatever and fight. I think it's all too easy for people to sit behind the keyboards or sit on the settees in the front rooms and criticise people when they know nothing about it and would never dream of having the nerve. As a fighter and a mixed martial artist myself, you know, sure, he's not the most technical of guys, but from what I believe, he's working hard to improve. You know, yeah, he comes from a street fighter background, you know, which isn't ideal, and I'm sure, you know, it's not the ideal scenario for when you're trying to push the UFC as a legitimate sport, and you've got one of the guys, one of the stars, not star of the UFC, but a well-known fighter who's coming from a street fighting background. It's not ideal, but you know he's trying to address his technique and he's trying to become a better fighter. So you know I think fair play to the guy.
Yeah, I like watching him fight. He's entertaining. He's excited. To quote him saying, "Kimbo Slice is the toughest guy at the barbecue. He belongs in the sport." And you know, the likelihood is that he's going to do fairly well because he'll make it to the UFC, but at least he's got a fair shot at it.
Quinton Rampage Jackson, one of the coaches, has recently just had to reschedule his fight with Sugar Rashad Evans for filming commitments in the new A-Team film, as he's B.A. Baracus. As well as that, there's Gina Carano, the face of women's MMA. She's also being cast in a film called Knockout, directed by Steven Soderbergh. Would either of you two consider?
There's a lot more involved in acting than what you just mentioned there. I mean, I've been approached in the past, and it's not something I'm against. You know, there's a possible movie in the works at the moment, and you know, time in between a fight, and you know, and